nos concitoyens et notre diaspora. Monsieur le Président, Mesdames et Messieurs, je quitte définitivement mes fonctions dans quelques jours. Un doux sentiment de liberté qui m'autorise de ces quelques mots venant du cœur. Le premier est un mot de profonde gratitude à vos excellences pour la confiance que vous m'avez accordée en m'élisant pour 2 mandats successifs, président de la Commission de l'Union africaine. Soyez assurés que j'ai mesuré, et je mesure toujours, toutes les dimensions de cette confiance et du lourd poids de la gratitude et la reconnaissance subséquente. Le deuxième mot porte sur l'autre et moi. Dans cet autre, je pense d'abord à nos partenaires, surtout ceux qui nous ont offert une amitié sincère et une coopération mutuellement avantageuse. Je voudrais les remercier tous et leur exprimer notre gratitude. Je pense ensuite à vous ici présents, ainsi qu'à ceux qui nous ont quittés pour différentes raisons. Nous avons réalisé de bonnes et grandes choses, et surtout avons, autant que faire se peut, respecter une certaine éthique et une ligne de conduite que nous croyons conforme à nos principes et objectifs. Veuillez accepter toute ma reconnaissance. Les membres de la Commission de l'Union africaine, d'autres hommes et femmes ensuite, y ont travaillé, souvent dans l'ombre, avec assiduité, dévouement, discipline et talent. Je voudrais leur rendre l'hommage qu'ils méritent. Le troisième mot est relatif à mes propres limites. J'ai tant voulu faire vite et mieux au cours des 2 mandats que vous m'avez confiés. Je sais que je n'ai pas tout fait. Peut-être ai-je sous-estimé la lourdeur de la tâche et le poids des pesanteurs. Je sais que j'ai peut-être commis des erreurs. Je ne devrais peut-être pas dire peut-être. J'ai certainement commis des erreurs. Peut-être ai-je ici ou là faibli ou m'étais trompé et manqué des occasions de faire mieux. Je voudrais m'en excuser et demander pardon si mes manquements ont causé un quelconque tort individuel ou collectif. Le 4e mot est relatif à mon sentiment de l'instant. Je suis heureux de reprendre ma liberté. Mais je sais que j'aurai aussi la nostalgie des lieux, des femmes et des hommes que j'y ai connus, du peuple éthiopien à la civilisation millénaire. À vous, mon cher Dr Abiy Ahmed, Betam Amesegnalem. Peut-être faudra-t-il écrire l'histoire de tout cet enchevêtrement de sentiments et de sensations. Enfin, mon 5e mot est celui de mon serment, de continuer à servir, de penser à l'Afrique, à servir l'Afrique, à rêver pour elle, pour sa jeunesse à laquelle nous n'avons pas fait suffisamment et à laquelle nous devons faire beaucoup, car après tout, c'est elle qui compte aujourd'hui et davantage demain. Un mot de la fin à vous, Monsieur le Président et cher frère Mohamed Cheikh Al-Ghazouani, pour vous dire combien j'ai apprécié votre proximité tout au long de votre mandat. Vous avez été un maître de sagesse, de civisme et de hauteur, inspirant à tous égards. À vous, Monsieur le Président et cher frère João Lourenço, je me permets de souligner que la force tranquille que vous symbolisez me rassure sur une présidence en exercice de sérieux et de substance. Puissiez-vous tous les deux en particulier, et nous tous, avoir une pensée agissante pour les grands prisonniers du Sahel, le président Mohamed Bazoum, dont rien ne justifie l'interminable détention. Il doit être libéré sans condition. Plein succès à notre sommet, plein succès à notre prochain leadership. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you for your statement. Thank you for your unwavering commitment. Thank you for dedication towards Africa's peace, development, and unity. Thank you very much. I will now have the honor to invite His Excellency Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his statement. Your Excellency.
Monsieur le Président de l'Union africaine, Excellences, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, thank you for your leadership in the outstanding exercise of your mandate. Presidente João Lourenço, parabéns e aguardo com expectativa a oportunidade de trabalhar consigo como novo Presidente da União Africana. I also want to give a very special expression of gratitude to the Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mousa Faki, for his 8 years of strong and permanent commitment to multilateralism and impeccable cooperation with the United Nations. Cher Mousa, travailler avec toi est un privilège, un plaisir et un honneur. Excellencies, the partnership between the African Union and the United Nations has never been stronger. Together, we see an Africa booming with hope and possibility. You have a booming, enterprising population, including the largest number of young people in the world. The African continental free trade is poised to turbocharge the region's economy, and calls to address the legacies of colonialism and slavery are growing louder, as reflected in your team this year, and as reflected in the leadership of so many passionate voices for the liberation of Africa, such as the great Dr. Sam Nujoma of Namibia, whose life we celebrate and whose loss we mourn. The world must never forget that Africa is the victim of two colossal and compounded injustices. First, the profound impact of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade. The roots stretch back centuries, and the bitter fruit continues to affect Africans and people of African descent to this day. Decolonization alone in itself was not a panacea. Political independence did not free countries from structures based on exploitation and decades of economic, social, and institutional underinvestment. It is high time for reparatory justice frameworks to be put in place. Second, Africa was under colonial domination when today's multilateral system was created, and that injustice endures. Look no further than the United Nations Security Council. There is no excuse that Africa still lacks permanent representation in the 21st century. I will keep working with the African Union and all Member States to ensure the representation Africa needs and the justice you deserve, including with 2 permanent members of the Security Council. And we will keep pressing together for an international financial architecture that is no longer outdated, dysfunctional, and unfair. Correcting age-old injustices is essential to address here and now challenges. And the good news is that we have many of the solutions we need. Last year, you helped drive that effort at the United Nations with the Pact for the Future. And I thank Africa for its support that was vital to approve the Pact. Our task now is to make those commitments a reality. South Africa's G20 chairmanship could not come at a better time. Let me point to 4 areas for action. First, we must push for peace, security, and alleviating appalling levels of human suffering. Sudan is being torn apart before our eyes and is now home to the world's largest displacement crisis and famine. As we near the holy months of Ramadan, it is time for an immediate cessation of hostilities. And the international community must come together to stop the flow of weapons and the bankrolling of bloodshed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congolese people have been suffering yet again from a brutal cycle of violence. And the fighting that is raging in South Kivu as a result of the continuation of the M23 offensive threatens to push the entire region over the precipice. Regional escalation must be avoided at all costs. There is no military solution. The deadlock must end, the dialogue must begin, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the DRC must be respected. The conclusions of the recent joint EAC-SADC summit offer a way forward, with a renewed call for an immediate ceasefire and new momentum for regional efforts based on the Luanda and Nairobi processes. Now is the time for swift implementation. And you can count on the continued support of the United Nations, including MONUSCO. In the Sahel, the clear and present threat of terrorism is undermining peace, security, and sustainable development. And in Somalia, we are urging predictable funding for the African Union support and stabilization mission, and I hope that our voice will be heard by the Security Council. And as we gather here in Africa, I know all our minds are also very much on Gaza. A resumption of hostilities must be avoided at all costs. The Palestinian people have suffered too much. I welcome efforts by the parties to abide by the ceasefire agreement and urge action for a permanent ceasefire and the release of all hostages. Peace is possible in the Middle East, and that starts with tangible, irreversible, and permanent progress towards the two-state solution, Israel and Palestine, living side by side in peace and security. Excellencies, on all fronts, we stand shoulder to shoulder with the African Union to advance security, stability, human rights, and rule of law. Excellencies, second, we must keep working together to deliver the AU 2063 agenda and the 2030 agenda for sustainable development and drive action on finance. African countries pay up to 8 times more to borrow than developed countries. and 20 are in or at risk of debt distress. The Pact for the Future supports an international financial architecture reform to reflect today's economy, ensuring fair representation and urging effective action on debt relief. And I will stand with Africa as a matter of justice and to right the historic wrongs. Excellencies, third, the climate crisis. Climate disasters are tearing across Africa, destroying lives, upending livelihoods, devastating economies, and inflaming conflict. At the same time, the renewables revolution is unstoppable, and Africa is poised to become a global